In this video, I'm going to explain the science behind the Feel Great system. I want to show you why it's working so well for so many different people, even though they aren't counting calories, eliminating carbohydrates, or doing any form of extreme exercise. I'm also going to explain what to do to have a fantastic experience and get great results. Hi, I'm Dr. Midgen Brown. If you're struggling with cravings, low energy, brain fog, for men, low testosterone and erectile dysfunction, for women, PCOS, if you have lots of excess body fat, if you have high cholesterol or hypertension, if you have metabolic syndrome, otherwise known as insulin resistance, or any of the problems that the Feel Great system helps address, this video is for you. Right now in the US, only 12% of American adults are metabolically healthy. When one kid is failing the class, it may be an individual problem. But when all the kids are failing the class, it's not an individual problem, it's a systemic one. And that's what we are dealing with. 50 years ago, we didn't have these problems. We didn't have a diabetes epidemic, an obesity epidemic. We didn't have a lot of metabolic syndrome. But we do now. And so what changed? Well, I'm going to explain exactly what changed and how the Feel Great system helps us address it. Everybody in the world is familiar with white rice. But what many people don't know is that wild rice actually looks like this. Around the grain of rice is something called the bran. That's the fiber. We remove the fiber and only eat the white part. Food makers are taking things like this, removing all the fiber so they can make us products like this. Okay, so we aren't getting fiber, so what? Well, it's a big deal. If you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, fiber is your friend. It helps with blood sugar control and weight management. It can also lower your risk of heart disease and some cancers. Fiber naturally reduces your blood sugar and insulin spikes. Fiber also protects your heart. Fiber prevents your body from taking in some fat and cholesterol, lowering your triglyceride and cholesterol levels to help you reduce your risk of heart disease. Heart disease is the #1 killer in North America. Fiber is great for your digestive health. 1 out of 5 people in the United States has irritable bowel syndrome. Fiber also helps improve gut health. And fiber is extremely satiating. It keeps you feeling full and helps with weight management. Now, what happens when you remove all the fiber? Well, you get a diabetes epidemic, an obesity epidemic, a heart disease epidemic, an IBS epidemic, and mental health epidemic. Now, in a perfect world, we would all be making lush garden salads with fruits and vegetables and seeds and herbs before every meal to get the fiber that we need to be metabolically healthy. But because it's not always convenient or affordable, the Feel Great system has a great solution for this, and that's the balanced product. 12 years ago, there was a very important study done at the University of Sydney. This is the home of the glycemic index. This is a study that everybody in the world should have heard of, but guess what? Nobody did. In this study, they looked at what happens when you eat carbohydrates like white bread. As expected, it causes a blood sugar spike and an insulin spike. This is very bad for people who like carbohydrates and are trying to lose weight or reduce their blood sugar. However, just taking 1 packet of balance prior to eating reduced blood sugar levels by 20%, and 2 packets reduced it by up to 28%. A study like this is of critical importance for anyone struggling with their blood sugar control or their weight. Because if you can control your blood sugar and insulin spikes, everything changes. You can get all the health benefits of this clinically proven blend of plant fibers by simply mixing this with some water 5 to 15 minutes before you eat. By simply having the balance 5 to 15 minutes before your meal, you're going to do a lot of things. 1, it's going to fill you up. Fiber is very, very satiating. It helps people struggling with overeating not overeat. And one of the great things about this is there are no medications in it. It's a natural way to control glucose levels, insulin levels, cholesterol levels, triglyceride levels. You can find the balanced product on the online version of the Prescriber's Digital Reference, pdr.net. It's where medical professionals and doctors turn to for prescription drugs and supplements. If you search Unicity Balance, you can read all about it here. There's nothing magical about balance, it's pure science. The balance is much more than just a fiber supplement. The manufacturer has 4 different patents on this one product so that nobody can copy it. There are no medications in it. It's a natural blend of plant fibers, nutrients, vitamins that are completely safe. So let's talk about the other half, the Unimati. One of the reasons why 50 years ago we don't have all the problems we do now is because 50 years ago we weren't eating and snacking all day long. 50 years ago, when someone came home from school and asked their parents for a snack, they'd say, absolutely not, you'll spoil your dinner. And then before bedtime, if you asked for a snack, they'd say, absolutely not, you should have eaten your dinner. But in the last 50 years, we have gone from 3 meals a day to more like 6 meals a day. We eat and snack all the time. There's a great doctor at the University of Toronto by the name of Dr. Jason Fung. He wrote the book, The Diabetes Code. He also wrote a book called The Obesity Code. He has done amazing things for people who struggle with obesity and type 2 diabetes. In his clinic at the University of Toronto, most of his patients with type 2 diabetes have a complete reversal of their disease and are off all medications in 3 to 6 months. Well, that's amazing. How did he do it? Through intermittent fasting. The modern diet is full of food. We eat and snack all day long. We also eat a lot of refined, processed, carbohydrate-rich foods. And because of this, we are on a blood sugar roller coaster. That's the blue line. The glucose is the blood sugar. It spikes and crashes all day long. The purple line is the insulin. When we have this type of eating pattern, our insulin levels are elevated all day long. And when insulin is elevated for a long period of time, we become insulin resistant. Now, when insulin levels are high and glucose levels are low, like right here, we feel extremely hungry. Throughout the day, you will notice periods of extreme hunger. We feel hungry all the time. Thousands and thousands of years ago, before we are snacking and feeding all day, we are feeding and fasting. When we are fasting, insulin levels are typically low. That's a message to the body to be burning stored calories for fuel. And when we are feeding, insulin levels are typically high. That sends a signal to the body to be storing calories. So what Dr. Fung and several others figured out is that instead of eating all day long, we simply need to condense into fasting periods and feeding periods. And when we are fasting, we are not starving. We are just switching energy sources. We're switching from food for fuel to fat for fuel. And once your body switches to burning fat for fuel, you actually don't feel hungry all the time. Now, in order to keep burning fat for fuel, we need to avoid snacking. Snacking is the enemy. And this is the hard part, right? Well, there's a way to make this much easier. And when we are eating, we like to enjoy good food. No one likes to feel like they are on a restrictive diet. However, it's still important to avoid glucose and insulin spikes and to avoid overeating. Again, that's the hard part, but there's a way to make this much easier as well. This is what it looks like. When you wake up, you fast through the morning. The Unimati is used to extend the fast. And then when it comes to meal times, use the balance before meals. This helps to reduce the glucose and insulin spikes you would normally have. The balance is also very satiating. It helps to avoid overeating. And the Unimati is the most effective thing I've ever tried to help me avoid snacking. You can take the Unimati either hot or cold. I personally like it cold with lots and lots of ice. I sip it every 5 to 15 minutes and make it last up to 3 hours. The Unimati is extremely good at helping you extend your fast. In the next video, I'll go into a bit more detail about how to use the system. There are hundreds of millions of people all over the world dealing with this silent epidemic, insulin resistance. The Feel Great system is a science-based approach to address this.